Hello everyone, it's Helen from Journaling Planet. Do you use little labels like this one in your collage a lot? They're quite popular little things that you find on many YouTube tutorials. Labels and tickets, the kind of thing that you use all the time. Usually to just add an extra embellishment when you need something neutral and you want to create something that is a little bit different. Well, obviously you can go out and buy them, but as this is a channel largely devoted to being as environmentally friendly as possible, I want to show you 7 things that you can use, most of them easily accessible around the house, or things that you can pick up in reclaimed materials stores such as thrift stores, flea markets, and even your local community. So let's start with the easiest and most accessible thing that you have to hand. You don't need much media for this, although if you have ink stamps it does help, but it doesn't matter. Let's start with this one, which I haven't even inked around. I've just cut around and cut off the corners, and I'll show you how I do that because I learnt it from the Paper Outpost. So this is just an old receipt, and at the bottom of the receipt there was a QR code, so I just cut around that, chopped off the corners, and I have myself a little ticket straight away. Now, of course, when I came to do this video, I was hoping to find another receipt with a QR code on. Could I find one? No, but I could find barcodes. So I'm going to use barcodes instead of the QR codes to show you how you can easily make tickets. And you could do this actually with any part of the receipt. I'm just choosing the barcode because I think it looks particularly cool. So it's just the barcode off the bottom of the receipt. I'm going to take my hole punch and I'm going to do what the Paper Outpost, Pam at the Paper Outpost, referred to as a quarter punch. So it just takes the corner off and makes it look quite ticket-like. I'm going to do that all the way around. So I'm just going to do it all 4 corners. They're not going to be particularly even because this is me. If you have a steadier hand, then you'll get it probably closer to perfect than I will. But the point is, I just want to take all 4 corners off like that, and it already looks like a ticket. I could obviously just leave it there, especially given that it's got the red background. I'll show you one with just a white background in a moment to show it looks just as cool. But I might just ink around the edges to give it a little bit of a distressed look. Sort of bring out the corners I've cut off a little bit more. This is way number 1, and I have 6 other ways, 6 other materials that you can use. I think that is a perfectly acceptable ticket to use in a piece of collage. And it's just a piece of receipt. I'm not going to do anything else to that, though of course I could. Okay, get my stencils out, get my stamps out, I could really go to town. But I want to show you that it can be that quick and easy. Okay, all right, let's start with another one that is plain white. And this time, perhaps because it's plain white, I will jazz it up a little bit more. So I'm just going to cut again along the barcode. Again, I could use any part of the receipt. It doesn't have to be the barcode. I just particularly enjoy working with those ones, and since I'm on video I thought, well, I'll use the bit that I like best. So I'm going to go around the corners again, just chopping off the corners or punching out the corners, however you want to think of it. Again, it's not going to be perfect all the way around. I'm just getting it as close as I can, putting the corner in but not punching a full hole. Okay, and I am going to ink around, and it's going to show up a little bit better on this one because it's a white piece of paper. The other one was really just for a little bit of an edge. little bit of a distressed edge, but this one is going to look kind of almost vignetted as I go around. And I'll tell you about an extra trick that you can use with these that I'm not going to show you on video, but I will link to some of the tutorials below. And the reason I'm not going to do it today is that it involves an iron, and it is an exceptionally hot day here as I film this. So that's just it inked. So again, that looks perfectly fine. I could use that in a collage, but just to add an extra little something, I am going to get a stencil, and I'm going to place, it's just a number stencil, and it has got these funny circles on it. I got it from Shine, SHEIN, and I'm going to use my worn lipstick, but you could use, on some of these, I use just gel pen. You could just use any red pen. And you could really use any stencil, to be totally honest. It doesn't have to be, if it's abstract, that's all the better. But it could be anything. So I'm just going to get my worn lipstick, and I'm going to start just stenciling over, because this is completely white and I probably want to just take away some of that whiteness. Okay, let's see how this looks. I have no idea how this will look. Let's have a look. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So that's that done. And I'm just going to wipe off my stencil. It just goes to show how if you have something like this that is reusable, and I say this a lot on the videos that I've made so far, and I will keep saying it a lot on this channel, if you have things that are reusable like this, you can use them over and over and over again for lots of different projects. If I wanted to do a little bit on this, you know, I could take my brown and just do a very light design, because it doesn't need much really. Just do a very light design, maybe just in the corner, maybe just do a few numbers. It won't show up particularly well, but it'll be there. I think that looks really cool. So receipts, any receipts. You could also use bus tickets. I have a whole, this is to me free craft paper. I have a whole plastic wallet full of receipts and bus tickets. They were free, they came with a purchase, but essentially they are free craft paper. So when people ask you, would you like a receipt? If you're a junk journaler, the smart answer is yes, because I'm going to be showing you other projects that you can make with receipts and bus tickets and movie stubs and basically any random piece of paper that comes into your life. I'm all for just using these bits and pieces as much as possible. Okay, just ink around this. Quite a lot of ink because I added some water to this a while back, and it's an oxide pad. And then anyone at home who's ever used an oxide pad, you're smiling to yourself, because you know what happens to an oxide distress ink pad when you add even just a drop of water to it. It gets really dark like this. I don't mind it. It's really emphasizing the edges, and it does look like it's sort of an old worn ticket, so that works well. Maybe I'll just try some brown as well with this stencil. Just a few numbers. I won't go so far this time as I did last time. I won't go over the whole thing. Just do a few numbers in the corner and a few of the circles, and that should be enough just to give it a little something. Yep. And it's not a perfect impression, and that makes it even better. Obviously, I'm making these quite big so that you can see them. They would take up quite a lot of space in a collage. You can make much, much smaller ones. Okay, so that is way number one. Number two, you could just take some normal raffle tickets or cloakroom tickets as they're known. I got these from a thrift store, so they are reclaimed materials. And what I would suggest is, if you don't have any of these in your house and you don't have any of the other materials either that I'm about to show you that you can use, though I would be surprised if you didn't have one of them, Ask around in your community notice boards, online forums. Has anyone got anything of these spare? Because they're often left after local events, and guess where they end up if they're not used? Usually either in the recycling or even worse, in the bin. So ask around. The individual tickets just look like this. Most of you will be familiar with them from events, particularly charity events, if you attend anything like that. You'll usually find that there's a raffle going on there. Okay, so this one's cool because it's already got a number on it. However, I can further embellish this, and I did that with these ones. I just went round with a pen around the edge, and that was all I did to that one. And I could, of course, again, I haven't been round to distress it, but I could do that and give it an extra little edge. But it doesn't really need more than that. It's doing what I want it to do. It's looking like a ticket, and that's the aim. It's a little bit more distressing around the edge, but you get the idea. It's pretty much done like that. So all I did in order to, put the lines around is I just got a pen, and it can be a pen of any colour. I just did the dashes around. When it came to the corners, I just did a little semicircle, and this is very similar to a project that I watched on the Paper Outpost. I absolutely love Pam's videos. She's got the most amazing voice. She's so engaging and funny and kind, and I just love watching her videos. And this was one that I definitely thought when I watched it, I wonder if I can add to that and do something else and do something even further. So that's essentially a cloakroom raffle ticket with corners chopped off it and, a little bit of lining around the edge. But again, if I wanted to, I could bring in either a stencil, like I have, and when I stencil it, it looks, looks a bit like this, which I think is really cool. But I could also use a stamp over it, something that is perhaps a little bit ticket-esque or has an interesting abstract pattern on it. So something like this, for example. Don't know how well you can see it, but you will do in a moment when I get it inked up. It's a table of an exploration pack that I bought from a online craft supply place. I will link to it below. And it's just really a table. I'm just going to use my archival ink for this because that's what's handy. It's waterproof, so it means that when I stamp on here, it will last forever, which is great. So I'm just going to make an impression. It doesn't have to be a perfect impression. There we go. I think that looks great. It's so simple. And this is what I also say about ink stamps. I'm just going to stamp another receipt whilst I'm get the rest of my ink used up. Ink stamps, stencils, they will pay for themselves over and over again, and they do not require any recycling. They last a long time, so they are worth it. So I will make that other receipt another time. But you get the gist. A bit of stamping goes a long way with a project like this. So there's that one. That's number 2. And then number 3, if you can't get hold of those, another thing that I think people have access to quite a lot is these sort of bingo tickets. And what I would do with these is first of all, I would tear off a strip like this. Okay. In this instance, I personally would cut off the word bingo, and it is only because it immediately alerts the viewer, if you like, to what the original purpose was. It stops it sort of looking like a ticket. So I'm again going to, well, actually, let me trim this down. I'm not going to use a whole strip as one ticket. We'll use sort of that size is good. Come in with taking off my corners. If I can even remember how to use a hole punch. That's the trick though. You have to remember how to use all the tools you're using. Did I mention it was a hot day? Did I mention that? Did I mention that the heat is getting to me? So I think immediately you start to see something there where you think, yeah, that's starting to look a little bit like a ticket already. And then again, what I can do is come around with my distress ink before I do anything else and just give that a little touch up. Just so you know. Make it a little bit grungy. Distress the paper. So there's that. And then again, I can either choose to stencil or stamp it. Depends on what I would like to do, or what effect I would like to create. In this instance, I think I'm going to put a little stamp on here, and I'm going to put a label stamp that says Vintage Collection on it. So again, it doesn't have to be the perfect impression. I'm just essentially looking for an effect. That works lovely. And again, whilst I've just got this here, I'm just going to stamp on a receipt. It's really good to get those second impressions. You can see they're not as sharp, but that in itself adds its own charm. Now, if I wanted to, I could do more around the edge here as well. I could come in with my pen again, and I could make some marks around the edge and make it kind of a faux kind of look. And in some respects, a little border often goes a long way with this kind of project. It just makes it seem a little bit more deliberate, a little bit more like it all hangs together. You don't have to have a border every single time, but I think it does just add a little something to that. Lovely. So that's bingo cards, cloakroom tickets and receipts. That's 3 already that we've done. I thought about what else you could use that you might have lying around. I think this is less likely that you might have it lying around, but you can use tracing paper if you happen to have any of that around. I'm going to use the Stays On ink for this one, which does, it tends to go better on things like acetate and tracing paper, anything a bit more sort of glossy. And I'm just going to immediately press down, give my impression, come back up. Don't think I've quite got room to stamp across there. So I'm going to go this way. Lovely. 2 really beautiful impressions, but I need to leave these to dry because it's tracing paper. It will take a little while. So I'm going to put this to one side, but once they're dry, I'm going to cut around them and show you that they look beautifully kind of transparent. Okay. Tracing paper is really great. I did say I would tell you an extra trick with the receipts, and it links to the tracing paper in that if you put some wax, melt some wax with an iron over a receipt, it's really thin paper, the wax will go straight through it and it will make it look transparent. There are some tutorials I've seen with wax being used like this. Bohemian Crafting has one, and also Shannon Green, who also got the idea from Joey DeFee. So I will link to those and you'll be able to see how you do it. As I said, really hot day here today, so I don't really fancy getting the iron out, but it is worth having a go with melting some wax if you want to do that. Another piece of thin paper that you could use wax with is phone book paper. Very thin, very flimsy, or at least in the UK they are. And what I would do with something like this is I would just trim off a square of the or maybe a rectangle is more accurate. A rectangle of the paper. Okay. And then I would use my corner trick that I've been using all the way through, which is really the key thing that makes these look like tickets. Oopsie. I knew that would happen eventually. Let's just trim off that and try again. Eventually I was going to do a proper hole punch by accident and I wasn't holding it where I should have been holding it. It's no big deal, you just trim it off and you have a slightly smaller ticket. It's no big deal. So that's now the size of my ticket. And to be honest with you, that would be fine as it is. I don't actually need to do anything else like that with that. But it would be quite nice if it had a focal point of some kind. So I am going to stencil some numbers on there and do a bit of distress inking whilst I'm on, just a little bit, okay? This is the distress inking. As I say, sort of looking quite good as it is, but let's get just the stencil out again and let's just go over with a few numbers and shapes. We'll use the the worn lipstick, sorry, not the red lipstick, worn lipstick. Yeah, loving how it looks. Okay, you could add yet another embellishment to that if you wanted to. You could create a create a stamp impression on that as well. As it stands, I'm perfectly happy with that because it's quite a neutral piece of ephemera. Okay, so that's phone book. And another thing that you might have lying around that's quite similar is newspaper print. I would recommend getting something with either numbers or text on it and just trimming a square of it to work with. So let's try with this. The wax trick would go very well with newsprint. I think it would work really well because it's very thin paper. So here I am again. I'm actually going to trim all the edges off here. I'm just going to leave the text and a few numbers at the bottom there. I'm going to quickly punch the corners out. This time I might actually do it correctly, who knows? Let's hold our breath and find out. And I think it's time for some more stamping. So I could really go any way I want, but you can even use something as simple as a postage stamp. I have this little postage stamp set, but you could use something as simple as this. And it would create, I think anyway, the sort of technique or the sort of effect that you're going for. So I'll just take off the stamp that I used before. Place this on. Make sure it's the right way up, because that's my specialty with text stamps, is to get them the wrong way up. And then it all reads backwards, which is just not very clever looking. I think we can all agree. So just putting some ink on that. And as soon as I do this, I just think it immediately looks like a little ticket. And again, just go around with my ink. Just distress it up a little bit. Shake the camera, because that's what always happens when I distress on camera. Every time. Every time it looks like there's an earthquake at this end of the line. You'd be a bit concerned if it didn't shake the camera, let's be honest. Okay. I think that's looking great. If you have it, I picked up this newsprint pad at a shop called Choosing Keeping, and it's in London, and it was a present for my birthday. So I wouldn't normally splurge on paper, but I saw an opportunity with this one, and it looks like this. It's quite thin. So if you have something like this, you could, create a very similar look, only without the text behind it. Let's see if we can get a second impression on here. What I found is, that's sort of, I used all my ink on the first go. Let's try again. What I found is that, at least for the first impression, this kind of paper tends to ink quite well. Like you can see, that's a really sharp impression. And when I do that, all I need to do is trim around the postmark, and I immediately have a ticket that I could use in a collage in my junk journal. I just love it. I use this paper all the time for my ink stamping, and it makes just brilliant, brilliant ephemera. Okay, let's just go back to our tracing paper for a moment and see if that's dry. It's looking good. So I'm just going to trim this corner off and then quickly cut around. I'll speed up the cutting out. Okay, I don't think you get the sharpest impression in the world from tracing paper, but I don't think it actually matters. I think they look really cute and they're very sort of transparent, so it would work well to add into a collage, I think. So I think there's only one trick left to show you, and that is to have a go with using sewing pattern paper. I think what's cool about this is that it already has some lines and things on it which you can use in your design. So for example, if I use the same, paid postage stamp, postage paid, I'm going to deliberately aim for a piece that has a line through it. And this soaks up beautifully, so you can get one very, very, very faded impression there. But let's stick with the very first impression. I'll cut it out and just show you what it looks like. This is again something that you could do a lot of if you just stamped all the way along the piece of pattern paper and then fussy cut it all out. You get a lot done in quite a short space of time, I think anyway. And again, it has this beautifully sort of transparent quality to it. I don't know, I might leave, you know, you can see how one side I haven't cut it off. I might leave that. I think it just looks more authentic as a sort of ticket. If you have stamps that are just literally labels, then making labels is very, very easy indeed. You just stamp onto the piece of paper, you've fussy cut round, and the job's done. That's a slightly clearer impression of that one. But if you don't have these ink stamps, either consider asking, you know, for a birthday or Christmas, or investing in them when you can, or consider one of these many other ways of creating labels from receipts, from tracing paper, from phone book, from bingo card, from cloakroom ticket. Just out of shot a little bit there. And from, of course, the sewing pattern paper, as we've just done. And I think that everyone would have at least one of these things around their house to have a play with. If you haven't, you know what to look out at the thrift store next time you're there. And you know what to ask for in your local community when they're sort of having events maybe. I really hope this has been a fun tutorial. I think this kind of project would be amazing for an afternoon where you just want to do something pretty low-key, low stakes, and just create a bunch of ephemera that you'll be able to use in collage, reuse quite a lot of reclaimed materials in the process, and enjoy working and focusing on something small. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Please tell me any other ideas you have in the comments of how else you could use this. Oh, there was newsprint as well. Let us not forget newsprint. Please tell me anything else that you have come across that makes good tickets or labels, and bob it in the comments so other people can benefit from your knowledge and share it with their junk journaling friends. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care, and I'll see you next time.